You might think Japanese cars are basically indestructible, and yes, engines from Toyota, Honda, or Mazda can easily go past 200,000 miles. But what most people don't realize is that a lot of daily habits quietly destroy that reliability. Small things you do every day without thinking, and over time they add up fast. In this video, we're going through the 12 most common, and the top one is the one I see the most. Let's begin. Number 12. Turning off the car immediately after hard driving. After sustained driving, especially highway speeds or long uphill pulls, engine oil temperatures can easily sit around 100 to 120 degrees Celsius, and coolant is already working at its upper range. While the engine is running, both fluids are circulating and actively controlling that heat. The problem starts the moment you shut the engine off. Oil stops flowing instantly, coolant stops moving, but the heat doesn't disappear. It stays trapped in specific areas like the cylinder head and upper valve train. That repeated heat soak slowly degrades oil at those hotspots and accelerates wear on seals and internal surfaces. I've seen this in engines like Toyota's 2.5L in the Camry, Honda's 2.4i VTC in the Accord, and Lexus 3.5 V6 setups. Cars that should feel tight and smooth at 150k miles start showing early oil consumption, rougher idle, or aging gaskets sooner than expected. Not because they're bad engines, but because they've been heat cycled like this thousands of times. You don't need to overthink it. Let the car idle for 20 to 30 seconds after harder driving. That's enough to bring temperatures down slightly and keep fluids moving before shutdown. Over time, that small habit makes a real difference in how the engine ages. Number 11. Never changing CVT fluid. This is one of the most common reasons I see Japanese cars come in with expensive transmission problems way earlier than they should. And it almost always comes from the same belief that the fluid is lifetime. In a CVT, fluid isn't just lubrication, it's part of how the transmission operates. It controls hydraulic pressure, manages friction between the belt and pulleys, and keeps temperatures under control. Once that fluid degrades, the entire system starts losing efficiency. In real conditions, CVT fluid starts breaking down much earlier than people think, especially in stop-and-go driving or hot climates. Around 60,000 to 80,000 kilometers, you already start losing fluid quality if it hasn't been changed. From there, wear accelerates. What I see in the workshop is always the same pattern. Nissan Rogues, Altimas, or even some Subaru models come in with hesitation when accelerating, RPMs rising without matching speed, or a light shudder under load. Most owners ignore it at that stage. Later, the transmission starts overheating more frequently, response becomes inconsistent, and eventually it fails. And when it fails, there's no cheap fix. You're looking at $3,000 to $5,000 for a replacement, sometimes more. On the other hand, the same models with CVT fluid changes every 40,000 to 60,000 kilometers behave completely differently. They hold pressure better, run cooler, and last significantly longer. This isn't optional maintenance. In these transmissions, fluid condition is everything. Number 10. Following long oil intervals in city driving. On paper, 10,000 to 15,000 kilometers. Oil change intervals sound perfectly fine. But those numbers are based on ideal conditions, mostly steady highway driving. That's not how most people actually use their cars. City driving is one of the worst environments for engine oil. You have constant cold starts, short trips where the engine doesn't fully warm up, and long periods of idling or stop-and-go traffic. All of that leads to fuel dilution, moisture buildup, and faster oil degradation. In those conditions, oil can lose effectiveness well before 10,000 kilometers. Around 6,000 to 8,000 kilometers, especially in urban use. You already start seeing reduced lubrication quality, and the engine doesn't warn you. It just keeps running while internal wear slowly increases. I've seen engines like the Toyota 1.8L in the Corolla or Honda 2.0L in the Civic start developing early oil consumption or rougher operation much sooner than expected. When you check the history, it's always the same. Long oil intervals, strictly following the manual but in heavy city use. The difference between changing oil at 7,000 kilometers versus 15,000 kilometers over the life of a car is massive. You're either maintaining consistent lubrication or you're running degraded oil for thousands of kilometers every cycle. If you drive mostly in the city, those long intervals simply don't apply. Cutting them in half is one of the simplest ways to extend engine life without doing anything complicated. Number 9. Doing only short trips every day. Short trips are one of the most damaging long-term habits, especially when they become part of your daily routine. Starting the engine, driving for 5 to 10 minutes, and shutting it off before everything reaches full operating temperature creates conditions where the engine is constantly working in its worst possible state. During a cold start, the engine runs richer, meaning it injects more fuel than necessary to stabilize combustion. That extra fuel doesn't fully burn and ends up washing down cylinder walls and contaminating the oil. At the same time, moisture builds up inside the engine because temperatures aren't high enough to evaporate it. If this happens occasionally, the engine can recover. But when it happens every day, that contamination accumulates. Oil becomes diluted with fuel and water, viscosity drops, and its ability to protect internal components is reduced. Over time, this leads to increased wear on piston rings, cylinder walls, and valve train components. Engines like Toyota's 1.8L in the Corolla or Honda's 2.0L in the Civic are known for durability, but even those start showing earlier wear patterns under these conditions. You may notice rougher cold starts, increased deposits, and in some cases, oil consumption appearing sooner than expected. Another issue is carbon buildup. Since the engine rarely reaches full temperature, deposits don't burn off properly, especially in intake systems and combustion chambers. That affects efficiency and responsiveness over time. The simplest way to counter this is to occasionally drive the car long enough to fully warm up, ideally 15 to 20 minutes of steady driving. That allows moisture to evaporate, fuel dilution to reduce, and internal components to operate under proper conditions. Number 8. Driving at low RPM while pressing the throttle, lugging. Driving at low RPM while demanding power from the engine is one of the most misunderstood habits, especially in modern cars that encourage fuel-efficient driving. It feels like you're being gentle on the car, but mechanically it's the opposite. When you press the throttle at low RPM, especially in higher gears or during uphill driving, the engine is forced to produce torque without spinning freely. This increases cylinder pressure and load, while airflow and lubrication are not at their optimal levels. Instead of smooth combustion, you get a more strained process. The engine has to work harder per cycle, which increases stress on internal components like piston rings, bearings, and connecting rods. Over time, this contributes to wear that doesn't show immediately but accumulates slowly. This is very common in vehicles with aggressive eco modes or CVT transmissions that try to keep RPM as low as possible. For example, many Nissan and Toyota models will hold low RPM under load to improve fuel economy, but that comes at the cost of engine stress in certain situations. You also get increased carbon buildup. Poor combustion under these conditions leads to deposits forming in the intake valves and combustion chamber. That affects efficiency and can cause hesitation or reduced power over time. A better approach is to allow the engine to operate in a slightly higher RPM range when you need power. Letting it rev naturally reduces load per cycle and improves combustion quality. It's not about driving aggressively, it's about avoiding unnecessary strain in the wrong conditions. Number 7. Ignoring early transmission, hesitation, or delay. Transmission issues rarely appear overnight. They usually start with small, almost unnoticeable changes in behavior that most drivers ignore because the car is still usable. A slight delay when pressing the throttle. RPMs increasing without a proportional gain in speed. A small hesitation when shifting or engaging drive. These are early indicators that something isn't operating as it should. At this stage, the problem is often related to fluid degradation, pressure inconsistencies, or early internal wear. The transmission is still functioning, but not optimally. This is the point where intervention can make a big difference. In CVT transmissions, especially in models like the Nissan Altima or Rogue, these early signs often appear when fluid has started losing its properties. The system struggles to maintain consistent pressure, and that results in delayed or uneven response. If ignored, the transmission continues operating under these suboptimal conditions. Heat builds up more easily, wear accelerates, and internal components begin to degrade faster. By the time the issue becomes obvious, such as slipping or overheating, the damage is already significant. Repairing a transmission at this stage is rarely simple. In many cases, it leads to full replacement, with costs easily reaching several $1,000s. Addressing it early, on the other hand, can be as simple as a fluid change or minor service. The difference in cost and outcome is huge, and it all comes down to whether those initial symptoms are taken seriously or ignored. Number 6. Not changing coolant for years. Coolant is one of those fluids people completely forget about because the car keeps running normally for years. The problem is that coolant isn't just there to prevent overheating. It's a chemical mixture designed to control temperature, lubricate the water pump, and protect internal passages from corrosion. And over time, it breaks down. Most modern coolants contain corrosion inhibitors that degrade gradually. After around 4 to 6 years, depending on usage and conditions, those additives lose effectiveness. Once that happens, the coolant may still look fine visually, but internally it's no longer protecting the system the way it should. In engines with aluminum components, which includes most Toyota, Honda, and Mazda engines, this becomes more serious. Aluminum is highly sensitive to corrosion when the coolant's protective properties are gone. You start getting internal scaling inside the radiator, restricted coolant flow, and early wear in the water pump. What makes this worse is that the symptoms don't show up immediately. The car doesn't suddenly overheat one day. Instead, cooling efficiency slowly drops. The engine runs slightly hotter under load, the radiator becomes less effective, and components start aging faster. Eventually, this leads to issues like weak heater performance, inconsistent temperature control, or overheating in conditions where the car should be fine. By that point, you're no longer just replacing coolant, you're dealing with degraded components. A proper coolant service every 80,000 to 100,000 kilometers, or every few years regardless of mileage, keeps the system chemically stable. It prevents internal corrosion, maintains proper heat transfer, and protects parts that are significantly more expensive than the fluid itself. Number 5. Resting your foot on the throttle or brake. This is one of those habits that doesn't feel harmful at all, but it creates continuous, unnecessary stress on multiple systems. Instead of allowing the car to operate smoothly, you're constantly forcing small adjustments. On the braking side, even light pressure keeps the brake pads in contact with the discs. That creates constant friction, which generates heat and accelerates wear. Over time, this leads to pads wearing down faster than expected, and brake discs developing uneven surfaces. That's where you start getting vibration when braking, even if the system was fine before. In city driving, this becomes even more noticeable. Instead of braking in a controlled way, many drivers keep slight pressure on the pedal, especially in traffic. That keeps the braking system partially engaged almost all the time. On the throttle side, the effect is less obvious, but just as real. Small, inconsistent throttle inputs prevent the transmission from settling into a stable load. In automatic and CVT systems, this leads to constant micro-adjustments. The transmission keeps trying to adapt, which increases internal movement, friction, and heat. Over time, this can contribute to less smooth operation, especially at low speeds. The car may feel slightly jerky or inconsistent, even though nothing is technically broken. Driving with clear, deliberate inputs changes that. Either accelerate or let the car coast. Either brake or release completely. That reduces unnecessary load on both the braking system and the transmission, improving long-term wear without changing anything else about the car. Number 4. Using cheap or low-quality engine oil. Not all engine oils behave the same once they're exposed to real operating conditions. Even if they meet the required specification on paper, the way they hold up under heat and over time can be very different. Engine oil is constantly exposed to high temperatures, pressure, and contaminants from combustion. Over time, it begins to break down. High-quality oils are designed to resist that breakdown longer, maintaining stable viscosity and protecting internal components more effectively. Lower-quality oils tend to lose viscosity faster, especially under repeated heat cycles. As the oil thins out, it can no longer maintain a proper protective film between moving parts. That's when internal wear starts increasing, particularly in areas like camshafts, bearings, and piston rings. In engines with tighter tolerances, such as modern Toyota 2.5L units or Mazda Skyactiv engines, this becomes more critical. These engines rely on precise lubrication to maintain efficiency and durability. Once oil stability drops, even slightly, the effect accumulates over time. You don't usually see immediate failure. Instead, you get gradual changes. The engine becomes slightly noisier, operation feels less refined, and deposits start building up faster inside the engine. Over tens of thousands of kilometers, that translates into reduced lifespan. Another key factor is additive quality. Better oils maintain their cleaning and anti-wear additives longer, which helps prevent sludge formation and keeps internal components in better condition. The difference in cost between low-quality oil and a good one is minimal when compared to the long-term effect. Using proper oil with the correct viscosity and decent quality is one of the simplest ways to protect an engine that's otherwise capable of lasting a very long time. Number 3. Never pushing the engine through the rev range. A lot of people think they're taking care of the engine by always keeping RPM low. They shift early, avoid revving, and try to keep everything as calm as possible. The problem is that doing this all the time creates long-term buildup inside the engine. At low RPM and light load, combustion is not as complete, fuel doesn't burn as efficiently, and that leads to carbon deposits forming over time, especially in direct injection engines. That includes a lot of modern Japanese engines from Toyota, Mazda, and Honda. Those deposits build up in places like intake valves, piston crowns, and the combustion chamber. You don't notice it immediately, but after 80,000 to 120,000 kilometers, the engine starts to feel different. Throttle response becomes slower, fuel economy drops slightly, and the engine loses some of its original smoothness. This is very common in cars that are driven almost exclusively in city environments, always at low RPM, never under real load. The engine never gets the conditions it needs to burn off those deposits. Letting the engine rev occasionally, once it's fully warm, helps clean things up. Higher RPM increases airflow, improves combustion, and reduces carbon buildup. It's something as simple as accelerating harder on a merge or letting the engine stretch a bit on open road. Engines are designed to operate across a full RPM range. Never using that range doesn't protect the engine. It limits it and slowly makes it less efficient over time. Number 2. Stop and go. Driving without understanding transmission heat. Stop-and-go traffic doesn't look aggressive from the outside, but internally, it's one of the most demanding situations for a transmission, especially a CVT. Every small movement forward requires the transmission to adjust. In a CVT, that means continuous changes in pulley position and belt pressure. Unlike highway driving, where everything stabilizes, city traffic keeps the transmission constantly working. That constant adjustment generates heat, and heat is the main factor that breaks down transmission fluid. As fluid temperature rises, it loses its ability to maintain proper pressure and protect internal components. In many CVTs, once fluid temperature consistently goes above certain thresholds, around 90 to 100 degrees Celsius, degradation accelerates quickly. The fluid becomes thinner, pressure control becomes less precise, and wear increases internally. This is why you start seeing symptoms like delayed acceleration, slight shudder, or inconsistent response in cars that spend most of their life in heavy traffic. It's not random. It's heat and fluid breakdown over time. Models like Nissan Rogue or Altima are especially sensitive to this. Without proper maintenance and driving style, repeated stop-and-go cycles shorten transmission lifespan significantly. Driving smoother, avoiding unnecessary throttle inputs, and maintaining proper fluid intervals directly reduces heat buildup. That's what makes the difference between a CVT lasting 200,000 kilometers or failing much earlier. Number 1. Accelerating hard with a cold engine. Right after starting the car, the engine is in its most vulnerable state. Oil is thicker, internal clearances haven't stabilized, and lubrication hasn't fully reached all components yet. Even though oil pressure builds quickly, full circulation takes longer. Critical areas like camshafts, valve components, and cylinder walls are not yet receiving optimal lubrication. At the same time, the engine is running a richer fuel mixture to stabilize combustion. If you accelerate hard during this phase, you're increasing load on components that are not properly protected yet. That creates higher friction and accelerates wear, especially in the first few minutes after startup. Temperature is the key factor here. Until the engine reaches operating temperature, around 90 degrees Celsius coolant temperature, internal expansion and lubrication are not in their optimal state. That's when the engine is designed to handle load efficiently. This is something that adds up over time. Engines that are frequently pushed when cold tend to show earlier wear in piston rings, cylinder walls, and valve train components. You don't notice it immediately, but over tens of thousands of kilometers, the difference becomes clear. The correct approach is simple. Drive gently for the first few minutes, keep RPM moderate, and avoid heavy throttle. Once the engine is warm, it can handle full load without any issue. It's a small habit, but it has a direct impact on long-term engine durability. If you're doing even a few of these without realizing it, you're slowly cutting your car's lifespan without seeing it yet. Fixing them is simple, but most people never do. That's why some engines make it past 200K and others don't. So there you have it. Take care of your car, and it'll take care of you. See you on the road, buddy.